Alright, so we're going to start taking a look at the lesson plans, and I'm going to give you a crash course in one lesson plan so you kind of understand the overall layout and the components included in a lesson plan. And then Alana is going to be the teacher, and she's going to take you through it. So the lesson plan I want to show you is actually the very first one. It's 1.1, which is what is metacognition. Which, by the way, why did we start an executive function curriculum with what is metacognition? That is really that is braided into this curriculum. Yeah, we want our students to be strategic, but we really want them to be self-aware. So we start off with that. So here I am on the curriculum page, and I'm going to pick the lesson I want and click the blue access button. When you're on the lesson plan page, the first one is always a lesson plan. Okay? So every lesson includes a lesson plan. You'll notice that the lesson plan always contains this first page that kind of goes over the concepts you'll be teaching about, so it's kind of like a little mini training, as well as some best practices in how to do this in your day-to-day teaching, which I think is very, very valuable. Then you get into the lesson plan itself. You'll notice the first couple icons are really just all about preparing. We do say that our lessons can be taught in an hour, although we've heard a lot of variation in this. Some schools are saying they get it done in 20 minutes, especially if you're doing it one-on-one, you'll find it goes much faster. And then we have some schools where they break a lesson into 4 sessions, okay? And I'll give you some recommendations of where you might cut it. You got your learning objectives right up front, materials, all the materials that we've created can be found on the lesson plan page. Sometimes you'll need things like a whiteboard to write on. The strategy notebooks are actually a very important thing to highlight. This is just a place, it's basically like a strategy portfolio, and I really do encourage you to have something like this. Some people have used a spiral notebook and have students write. Some people have used a folder or a binder. But this is pretty important because the student will be able to see evidence of their strategy use. And eventually you can put in the strategy reflection sheets in there as well. So the lesson always begins with a metacognitive activator, a way to get students thinking about the concept they're going to be learning today. Then you head into the guided instruction portion where you're going to model the strategy that they'll be learning. Then you head into the independent practice. So if you're looking for places to chop into 2 sessions, that's the perfect place. If you get through the guided practice, then you come back the next time and start off with independent practice. That's worked pretty well with most of the schools we've been in. Always have time for discussion at the end. Usually, there's not always a metacognitive wrap-up, but often there is. And this gives one chance for students to reflect. Also, later in the curriculum, you do have a strategy share here, where students have time to fill out strategy reflection sheets and also to share strategies they've come up with their fellow students, which is actually a really excellent activity and promotes buy-in. When you're looking at the PowerPoints, one thing that's really helpful to remember, PowerPoints are adaptable. So everything else is a PDF. You cannot change a PDF unless you have really fancy Adobe. But the PowerPoint is not. One of the upfront activities in this lesson is all about identifying the strengths and weaknesses of someone famous that they know about. When we originally did this, and I think if you go to the very end, you can still use our example of LeBron James, because we're like, oh yeah, kids love sports. I mean, we had to Google, we didn't know much about LeBron James, we had to look it up. And a lot of our teachers are like, no, our kids don't like sports. So we've had like a lot of superheroes, Indiana Jones, Spider-Man, Captain America, celebrities like Taylor Swift. We've also had, which is my favorite, are people in the school, the principal or the teacher. I mean, there's this woman in Washington actually who she did herself, and I don't know, that had never occurred to me, but I was like, that's so powerful. Because the kids were like, she's like, I really have anxiety when I have to take a test. And the kids were shocked. They had no idea. They think of you guys as superhuman, test-taking machines. So it was very, very cool. I really enjoyed that. So you could put your own picture in here. Also, you'll notice, we have a fair number of images in our curriculum. Some teachers like more images, some teachers like less. So you can adapt this however you like. Also, down here in the notes section, a lot of the lesson plan has been put in here. So if you're using this as an in-class teaching tool, you can get a lot of guidance as you go through it.
And I just think too, what you just on your last point, when you pull it up as a presentation, it splits the screen up as to what's coming, and it gives you those notes below.
Yeah,
which
that's
is really
true.
Nice as a teaching tool.
Yeah, when you're in presenter view.
Yeah.
So
right.
actually that's something we did really purposefully. We want the teachers to have the notes in the PowerPoint so that if you're in presenter view, what the kids see is just the thing, and then you have the notes that you can walk through. And the notes are actually pretty much word for word what the lesson plan is.
Yeah.
So you don't even necessarily need to have this in front of you. It's right there in the notes on the PowerPoint. But for some people, they like to have the hard copy too.
So a lot of our worksheets pretty straightforward. Once again, there are a lot of different ways you can adapt this. Okay, if your kids hate writing, they can draw arrows from what they, from the things that are strengths or not. They can number it. They can draw pictures. Okay, you can adapt this however you like. One other thing that teacher in Washington did that really, I just loved it. After she got all these, she shuffled them up and she read aloud the strengths, and the kids had to guess who in the class had those strengths, which she was just wonderful. She really kind of used this lesson as a relationship building exercise, which is very helpful when you're going to ask students to be honest about what they're not very good at and how they can do it differently. So finally, when you get towards the end of the lesson, always that teacher reflection sheet is a really great place for you to think about what did you do that worked well and what might you do differently. Okay? This is great feedback for us, but it's also very important for you. That's what you're asking your students to do. I highly encourage you to take teachers tell me this takes 3 minutes. Okay? And you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say something mean, by the way. So
and when I've been filling it out, I pretty much skip the things that I don't need, and I write the things that I do.
Nothing is mandatory, except you do have to tell me what lesson it was, because otherwise I have no idea.